especially about when to register our marriage. My husband wanted to do it sooner rather than later, and eventually, I agreed to go along with his timeline. The registration process itself felt routine, but the realization that we were officially married brought me a deep sense of joy. We initially planned for a small, intimate wedding. However, after my husband mentioned this to his mother, she intervened dramatically. She phoned us the next day, exclaiming, "A small wedding? Gregory deserves something grand, and I will ensure it is just that. Keep your guest list short, just your parents and close friends. I assume your friends are quite dull, they just dampen the mood." Her words were blunt and imposing. She quickly took over the planning, dictating everything from the venue to the guest list. It was overwhelming how she assumed she could control so much. Reluctantly, I agreed to limit my guest list to just my family and close friends, as she insisted. Yet, her interference didn't stop there. She had opinions on every detail: the program, entertainment, decorations, and even the menu. Following our elaborate plans would push our budget significantly over what was initially agreed upon. Initially, Gregory's family had promised to cover half of the wedding cost, but suddenly they retracted, leaving me to fund the excess caused by her lavish ideas. Trying to control costs, I secretly made some budget-friendly choices, but she criticized them too, accusing me of making the wedding look cheap because I didn't follow her instructions. After the wedding, I hoped for some space from her dominating presence, but my husband had other plans. Against my wishes, and unbeknownst to me, he decided we should live with his mother. The new apartment we had leased was cancelled, and all my personal belongings were redirected to his family's home. I was stunned. Every decision about our new life together had been made without my input. Handling the wedding arrangements had already been challenging enough, but this new development left me feeling completely sidelined in my marriage. Even when I expressed concerns to Gregory about the escalating costs exceeding our budget, he dismissed me. My anxiety, which had been a constant companion since before the wedding, only grew stronger afterward. We had planned a dream honeymoon abroad, a destination I had always yearned to visit. The thought of going there for our honeymoon felt like a fairy tale. However, my excitement was being overshadowed by Gregory's odd behavior and the looming reality of living with my mother-in-law upon our return. Despite the significance of the trip, Gregory had been strangely uncooperative during the planning phase. Oddly enough, he took it upon himself to handle the bookings for flights and hotels. I assumed he was arranging a romantic getaway for us and felt a mix of gratitude and relief that he was contributing, even in a small way. Little did I know, this was a harbinger of a shocking revelation. The wedding chaos subsided, and our honeymoon was upon us. Amid my mixed feelings about recent events and our future living arrangements, I was determined to make the best of our trip. Yet, as I was up in the middle of the night preparing for our early flight, Gregory casually dropped a bombshell. "Angela, I'm going on this trip with my mom," he declared as I was double-checking our luggage. I was stunned, unable to comprehend his words. "What are you talking about? It's our honeymoon, not just any trip. Why would your mother join us? We've only paid for 2 tickets, and everything's booked just for us," I protested. His next words left me reeling. "I never said I was going on this trip with you. Don't be ridiculous. I'm going with my mom. It's a gratitude trip for everything she's done for me. You stay here and get the house ready, cleaned every nook and cranny. You can click on share more to see if there is a part 2. Update. My husband demanded that I pay for our entire honeymoon. After I did, he burned my passport and left with his mother, calling me to say, "I only married you for your house, which is now in my name, you idiot." When he returned to his office from the trip, he was shocked to see me there with the cops. He asked, "Why are you here?" I smiled and said, "I'm the CEO." Part 2. Respond. He forcibly tore my passport, the one I had entrusted to him. Shocked, I stood speechless as he destroyed it right before my eyes. Just then, my fully made-up mother-in-law barged into our room without knocking. "Gregory, are you ready?" she chirped. His face lit up with excitement. "Yeah, we're good to go. Finally, we can enjoy this trip without any interruptions," he replied. They both shared a gleeful laugh, leaving me utterly dismayed. I realized then that I was on the brink of marrying into what felt like an absolute nightmare. While I had been contemplating how to manage living with my mother-in-law, this situation was beyond anything I could have imagined. "I see now the kind of people you two are," I managed to say, though my words seemed to have little effect, as they laughed heartily and left together. I had been pleased that Gregory was helping with the honeymoon plans, but it turned out he was orchestrating the entire trip for his mother, booking everything under her name from the start and leaving me to bear all the expenses. The betrayal from my husband was a profound blow, and my anger overshadowed any sadness I felt. The dreamy, intimate wedding and the perfect honeymoon I had envisioned as the best memories with the one I loved were both ruined by the selfish actions of my mother-in-law and my husband. Overwhelmed by the gravity of what was happening, I struggled to accept this harsh reality. Shortly after the fiasco with Gregory and his mother, I realized I had to make a swift and decisive move. I needed to get a divorce. Interestingly, I had been recording audio since the beginning of our wedding preparations, initially with the intent to capture the joy and significance of our wedding and honeymoon. However, what started as a sentimental project to preserve memories soon morphed into a crucial record of my mother-in-law's hurtful actions and harassment. At first, I doubted the utility of these recordings, assuming I'd never want to revisit them, but in an ironic twist, they became invaluable evidence for my impending divorce. In the days following the disaster, while I was supposedly settling into our shared home, I found myself packing to leave. I had barely unpacked, so it was quick work to get everything ready to go. As I prepared to leave, nagging anger about Gregory and his mother going on our honeymoon without me loomed in my mind, but I forced myself to focus on my next steps. While cleaning the house one last time to remove any trace of my brief stay, I stumbled upon shocking evidence. In the living room, I discovered documents showing that Gregory had been embezzling money from his company. He was in charge of sales and had been underreporting earnings, pocketing the difference. Shockingly, his mother was complicit, having kept meticulous notes of the actual sales, the amounts embezzled, and even a list of luxury items Gregory had purchased for her with the stolen money. The diary detailing their scheme was left carelessly in plain view. Stunned by the extent of their deceit, I quickly realized the gravity of the situation. Initially, I considered whether my position at the same company might allow me to smooth things over quietly, but I quickly dismissed that thought. Why should I protect someone who had so callously discarded me for a trip with his mother? Armed with the evidence of his embezzlement, I went straight to the company. Although Gregory and his mother were supposed to be on their honeymoon, my sudden appearance at work, rather than being on a tropical island, caused a stir among my colleagues and superiors. Upon seeing me, questions flew. Weren't you supposed to be on your honeymoon? No longer seeing any reason to conceal the truth, I explained that Gregory and his mother had gone on the honeymoon instead, leaving me behind after destroying my passport and saddling me with the entire cost of the trip. The shock and outrage from my coworkers were palpable. Thankfully, I had a unique ally in the company, my uncle, one of the top executives. I had always kept our relationship a secret to avoid any suspicions that I had landed my job through nepotism. I had earned my merit position alone, and he had agreed to keep our familial connection confidential. Since childhood, my uncle had shown me great affection, treating me almost like his own child. We shared many cherished memories, including trips just with him during my early years, where I'd often cheekily persuade him to buy me treats, much to my parents' chagrin. With the evidence of Gregory's wrongdoing in hand and the support of my uncle, I felt empowered to address the situation head-on. I approached my uncle with the evidence, and he was as shocked as he was supportive. It was a difficult moment, revealing the extent of the betrayal I had experienced, but it was also the first step toward reclaiming my independence and integrity after a profoundly unsettling chapter of my life. We hadn't met since the fiasco began. When I knocked on my uncle's office door, after explaining the situation to his secretary, I was allowed inside. My uncle, initially greeting me with a warm smile, sensed something was wrong as his expression quickly turned serious. "Aren't you supposed to be on your honeymoon?" he asked, his voice filled with concern. Seeing my uncle's familiar and kind face, I was overwhelmed with emotion and burst into tears. Through my sobs, I recounted the entire ordeal, detailing Gregory's betrayal and his mother's trip with what was supposed to be our honeymoon. I also disclosed the shocking discovery of Gregory's embezzlement. My uncle's expression shifted from concern to anger, a sight I had never seen. He listened intently, his brow furrowed, and immediately pledged to convene a board meeting to address the situation. After handing over the evidence, he asked me, "You can click on share more to see if there is a part 3.